20 of Bob Dylan's biggest songs are reimagined for the Tony Award-winning musical Girl from the North Country, set during the Great Depression. We have Ben Biggers here to chat all about it. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
The show is currently in Chicago. It's here through February 25th, so I love that it's 2 weeks of families and people getting to come and enjoy the show.
Yeah, we're set here for a good amount of time, and yeah, it allows for people to have plenty of opportunities to see it.
Let's talk a little bit about the premise of the story and how Bob Dylan's music fits into this.
Sure. So the premise is it's 1934 in Duluth, Minnesota, and the play is set in a boarding house. And we sort of zoom in on the lives of the Lane family who run the boarding house. And the narrative is sort of structured around their personal stripes and hopes and dreams. And then as the show goes on, more and more guests start to enter the boarding house. And then we get more and more of a look into their hopes and their struggles. And the sort of narrative threads of each of the guests and each of the characters sort of weave together to create a tapestry of the story. And on top of all that, there is the music of Bob Dylan sort of interwoven to comment on each of the characters' interpersonal lives.
I mean, that's what I love too, is that sometimes if you get a certain artist who has whether it might be a jukebox musical or the music inspired by a show, it's either of that time or the future. And I love that they're using, his time music to go into something in the past before his music was even around.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I when I first was auditioning for this show, I auditioned and then I had an interview with Connor. We just kind of chatted about the character and about the show. And he said that, when everyone was kind of optioning for this musical, everyone was sort of writing the Bob Dylan story. Like it starts with him getting off the bus in Greenwich Village and going, and he just took a total left turn and, used Duluth because that's where Bob Dylan is from as a springboard, but then wrote this entirely, almost disconnected story, but still true to the poetry of Dylan.
Let's talk a little bit about the character of Gene, because he has aspirations, but he also has struggles of his own.
That's right. Yeah, Gene is having a bad couple of days when we meet him in this show. I think saying that he has aspirations is very apt. He wants to be a writer, but he's watching his family sort of unravel around him. He's a very sensitive guy in a time where stoicism is valued, and so he numbs himself with alcohol, which he finds himself in the grips of. He's going through a breakup with a girl who's sort of stratospherically out of his league. So he's dealing with a lot of loss and not particularly dealing with it well.
We're going to talk to Kiara in a couple of minutes, but talk a little bit about that dynamic of her as Kate and you as Gene and working together with her.
Working with Kiara is a dream. I mean, as an actor, she's so present and available, and her singing voice is dynamite. Getting to sing with her is really a gift. And as the character, yeah, it's a vignette in not difficult, rewarding scene to do, because getting broken up with every night, is a challenge that is a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Talk a little bit about the movement, the dance, the style, because this is almost 100 years ago, and the way people move, the way people talk, the way people move was a lot different than we do that today.
Yeah, Lucy Hind is the choreographer, and her choreography is just brilliant for this. It's there's a lot of work with silhouettes and a lot of subtlety. It's really beautiful, and there was a lot of work of taking our movement out of the modern era and putting it into 1934. That's just sort of drops you into the world even further.
Let's talk a little bit about Bob Dylan's music. How familiar were you with it before starting the show? And do you have a different appreciation, kind of hearing these songs reimagined versus, the way that he originally recorded them?
Yeah, that's the reward of Bob Dylan's music, is getting deeper and deeper inside of it and trying to parse out your own understanding um, of one of the greatest lyricists of all time. I loved Bob Dylan's music before. I, of course, took a deep dive in college, and you know, the reimaginings only speak to the brilliance because they can be deconstructed and reconstructed and still maintain their original intent, which is really beautiful to be a part of.
The tour's already going on. You're in Chicago now. You're going to a couple more cities after that. Maybe some of the messages you've gotten from some of the younger folks, either at the stage door or on social media, as far as maybe being unfamiliar with his music and saying like, oh, wow, now that I've seen this, I want to go back and listen to it.
That has definitely happened. We've definitely had younger people who are discovering Dylan's music through this musical, which is insanely exciting. Through any medium, it always translates, and yeah, it's a part of the messaging, and it makes it really worth it to do the show every night.
I also want to chat. You grew up in South Bend, not too far away from Chicago. Did you come here to come see theaters? Was maybe your first theater experience here in our city?
My first touring production I saw in Chicago, I saw Wicked when I was 9 years old, and it blew my mind. And I was like, I'm going to do that one day. I'm gonna get up there. So returning to Chicago is a bit of a homecoming, and it's very cool.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you so much for your time today. Girl from the North Country, CIBC Theatre, now through February 25th. BroadwayInChicago.com for tickets, and enjoy your time in our city.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.